I saw a post this morning. It's disappointing that out of all we receive in church, we don't receive enough of some things. People who have grown up in church their whole lives should not feel that because they're grieving the death of a parent, that's something that they need to ask God to forgive them for, or they should not feel that the grief that they feel from the loss of that loved one and all of the things that go along with that grief, all of those waves, all of those ups and downs and the angry feelings and the why feelings, they should not feel like that's something to repent to God for. But because there's not enough, man, every church needs a psychologist. Every church needs a psychologist, a psychiatrist. Every church needs a cognitive behavioral therapist. Every church needs somebody who's a specialist in how the brain works, because we are calling demons things that are nothing but life. We are calling demons and things to be delivered from, and it's nothing but something that you just lack understanding. Grief is real. I can't think of his name. It's like his name just ran past my face. But he said, grief is love's last stand. And I saw somebody else say, grief is like, it stands in the place where that love used to be, but now that person is gone. So grief stands in that place. Somebody said, grief is proof that love was real. And I can't think of this actress name. Her son committed suicide. She said, grief is love that has no place to go. Because where it used to go, that person is no longer there. That's normal. That's natural. If you wake up and you want to throw something across the room because you're grieving the loss of that person who's no longer there and you don't understand something, that's nothing to be repented of. That's life. That's a part of life. But we have been so programmed to believe that faith looks a certain way. Faith sounds a certain way. And it doesn't. Sometimes faith screams. And sometimes faith cusses because it just don't fucking understand this shit. That's just grief. That's not something to go back to God and say, forgive me of all my sins and come back into my heart and forgive me, Lord, I left you and I didn't feel you, so I thought you left me. Baby, that's sadness, that's grief. And because we don't understand it and we haven't been given permission to honor the love we had for somebody, to truly honor the love we had for somebody, we think we're doing something wrong. That hurts my stomach. And I have never experienced grief like that. I feel for people who have that kind of grief from the loss of a loved one. I was holding my mother's hand when she passed, and I did not feel the kind of grief that a lot of people feel from losing a sibling or a parent. I'm thankful that I have not felt that kind of grief, but I did learn about grief because during different times in my life, when I lost things, when I lost jobs, when I lost my marriage, that's when I started learning. It was like, I filed for this divorce. I was sick of this man. Why do I feel this? It's not regret, but it was a sadness. And that's when I learned you grieve. Even when you have to make the decision to walk away, you still grieve what you walked away from, because not because you regret walking away, you grieve the loss of what you hoped it would be. You grieve the loss of what you believed it was when you stepped into it. You grieve the loss of what you were taught it should be. You grieve the loss of your idea about it. You grieve the loss of that thing that you poured your all into and it still didn't work out. You grieve that loss. You grieve the loss of a job. You grieve the loss of a friend. People grieve the loss of a pet in ways I will never understand. But grief is grief, and it hits all of us in different ways. But it's never something that you should feel guilty about. It's never something that you should feel like you walked away from God or you lost connection with God. No, you may not feel the Hana Mashah, and you may not feel all of that, but He never leaves. He never forsakes. He never walks away from you. So that's faith too. We think faith is always the stuff that makes us go and get up and speak in tongues and shout and dance, all this other. That ain't faith. Faith is who you are, and you know that He never left you. He said, I will never leave you. He said, lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. Period. So when you're grieving and you don't feel the church stuff, and you don't feel the coming on a Honda and a Hick of Messiah, you don't feel that. You don't feel the quivering. He's still there. He's just with you. You know how you just sit with a friend? I don't know what to say, but I'm here. He's with you. That hurts me. Because I know people who and I don't criticize them. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not criticizing them. But how come nobody told them it's okay to be pissed to the highest of festivity that my mom was gone? And how come nobody's telling people that your prayers can't override another person's desire to go home to be with the Lord? How come nobody's telling people it doesn't matter how hard you pray, it doesn't matter how much you believe, when they say, I'm ready, when that person says, I'm ready to go, I'm tired, there's no amount of faith on your part that can override that. This is personal. Our lives are personal. Our relationships with God are personal. Somebody needs to tell people grief is not a sin. Grief is not a sin. And if somebody is sick unto death, no matter how much you love them, if they're asking for prayer, if they want to live, if they're trying with all their might, if they're using all their faith and they're asking you to join your faith with theirs, I can understand that there's some disappointment and maybe some questions and like, but Lord, how does this happen? How does this work? But there are people who are ready to go, and your faith ain't gonna keep them here when they're ready to go. Because as much as they love you, there's somebody else they've been living to see. And I just want to say that, because I didn't learn this about grief from suffering, like from losing my mom. I was holding her hand and I heard that last breath. And I didn't realize it was the last breath. I thought it was a deep breath. It was deep. Woo! Because just before she took it, she looked past me and saw where she was going. And that let me know death ain't another person's death ain't about me. But you grieve the loss. You grieve the loss of that presence of that person. And that is not something you have to repent for. That's not something you're supposed to feel like God is upset with you. You didn't pray hard enough. You fasted. Maybe something's wrong with me. How come God didn't hear my prayer? Maybe you just grieving. And there's some things that you should have been taught in church, but you wasn't. To whom it may concern. Again, I'm not saying nothing bad about nobody. This hurt me. This hurt me. Grief is love's last stand. So if you're grieving, you're standing where that love used to be, where that person used to be. Grief is proof that the love is real. Okay? I just want to say that.